Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into an exclusive UpGoWise masterclass centered on Peter L. Bernstein's groundbreaking work, Against the Gods, The Remarkable Story of Risk. Now, you might think Against the Gods, The Remarkable Story of Risk is just going to be a standard math lesson or some dry hymn to financial markets, but it's not. The way Peter L. Bernstein lays it out, you'll actually see that Against the Gods, The Remarkable Story of Risk is a cold, clinical mirror for your own nerve, specifically when it comes to strategy and self-mastery. If you're a founder, an investor, or a builder who constantly feels like you're drowning in a sea of possible outcomes, Against the Gods, The Remarkable Story of Risk completely rewrites how we interact with the unknown.
Think about the idea that you do not choose with certainty. You choose with a pulse. That cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? Most of us want risk to be this monster pacing outside our door. We want it to be a sudden market crash, a terrible new hire, or a failed product launch that we can neatly plot out on a graph. But honestly, the very first risk is entirely physical, and it lives right inside your chest. It's that sudden hollow drop in your stomach, the involuntary tightening of your jaw. It's the nervous reflex of your hand as you reach out to refresh just one more dashboard. The data was never your prison. The fear hiding underneath it was. You might call your hesitation prudence. You might tell yourself you're just gathering more information or waiting for the dust to settle. But let's be real. Often delaying a decision is just your brain buying temporary relief from regret. You're basically pretending that your delay is careful judgment. The wrong choice rarely begins as pure ignorance, right? It actually begins as a strict refusal to price uncertainty, masking your deep-seated fear behind the very respectable disguise of prudence. So we arrive at the hidden toll. Let's plant a thread here that we're going to weave throughout this whole masterclass. The risk you refuse to name still prices your life. You can ignore the price tag all you want, but you absolutely cannot escape the final bill. This hidden toll is severe, and it's unrelenting. Bernstein's framework doesn't flatter your analysis. It doesn't pat you on the back for your complex spreadsheets. It demands that the chooser finally grow teeth. It asks us to step up and realize that the most catastrophic wrong choice is often the exact one you keep endlessly postponing.
There is a massive, defining split in how people operate when faced with consequence. One model dictates that you need certainty first and then you move. The other demands that you price the uncertainty and then you move. That first model, waiting for a clean, undeniable signal or waiting for the forecast to finally stop shaking, is essentially begging the future for mercy while the rest of the world keeps violently spinning forward. The second model, pricing the uncertainty first, well, that's what gives the present a spine. It's the profound realization that a strategic choice can be incredibly wise, meticulously planned, and yet still remain completely exposed to failure.
This perfectly illustrates one of the most dangerous psychological traps leaders fall into: sunk cost. Sunk cost is quite literally just regret wearing a sharp suit. In strategy, a dead premise can so easily wear the noble face of loyalty. When you keep feeding a dead decision just to protect your past identity, it takes a massive, hidden bite out of your future. You throw fresh time, fresh capital, and fresh energy after a dead premise. And suddenly, your overarching strategy becomes nothing more than a well-curated museum for your former selves, rather than an actual blueprint for where you're going. Let's ask a brutal question. What would one singular, significantly wrong choice actually cost you today? Not in vague, abstract business school theories, but in actual sleep, in hard cash, in the trust of your team, in lost years of your life. When you force yourself to make the abstract entirely chewable, you give your mind a firm handle on reality. You tell your pride to sit down. You start to see that your previous, overwhelming need for absolute safety was really just a phantom. That illusion of safety is exactly why you absolutely must price the risk. Your desperate need for total control was always a costume. The choice you are so fiercely protecting right now might merely be protecting your pride. That is incredibly hard to hear, I know, but acknowledging it is precisely where true intellectual refinement begins. Let's zoom out for a second to the brilliant historical context Bernstein provides. Before the concept of probability existed, the future belonged exclusively to fate, to the gods, and to omens. A Roman augur watched birds cross the sky to decide on war. A priest read the smoke from a fire. A merchant prayed the sea would miraculously spare his cargo. But then, the human mind made a massive evolutionary turn. We shifted from prophecy to measurement, from blind comfort to structure. We decided we didn't need the future perfectly held in our hands. We just needed a reliable way to stand squarely before it. Which brings us to a foundational scene in human thought, the broken game.
Picture the brilliant thinkers Blaise Pascal and Pierre de Fermat in the 1600s staring down at an unfinished dice match. The players had been forced to stop early and completely disagreed on how to fairly divide the stakes. No one could replay the future, and no oracle could magically finish the throw for them. They desperately needed a way to divide uncertainty itself, using pure logic without relying on fate or prophecy.
In this exact historical moment, the modern mind was born. First came the wager, then the interruption, and finally, the calculation. Pascal and Fermat began meticulously counting the possible paths of this broken game. By doing so, they turned chance from violent, unpredictable weather into a structured, predictable field you can actually walk on. That unfinished throw became the very grammar of modern choice, permanently turning the terrifying unknown into a measurable, manageable landscape.
Connecting this historical anchor to your strategy today, we arrive at downside protection, establishing a firm boundary against ruin. A refined mind stops asking if a move is perfectly safe. Safe is a total fantasy. Instead, the refined mind asks, is the floor protected? Risk is not the same thing as danger. Risk is exposure with a possible range of outcomes. Danger is damage. Your body and your business simply cannot survive. Once you lock in that downside boundary, your ambition is finally free to operate without paralysis. And this leads us to our deepest risk. It's not actually a financial loss. The deepest risk is a shrinking range. It's becoming someone whose world gets smaller and smaller because they require absolute certainty in order to act. You might look extremely wise and sound exceptionally careful to outsiders, but inside, your capability is shrinking. Your choices are getting cleaner only because they're getting significantly weaker. You don't lose all at once. You just slowly lose your range.
The refined mind does not beg the future to be kind. This is our pivot point. It is time to stop instinctively defending your old safe bets. Put them on trial right now. Ask yourself, what would I choose today if absolutely nobody knew my past stance? Your body will resist this. Your throat might tighten and the old narrative will ask for one more chance. Let it speak, but then sternly demand evidence. Do not punish the past, but absolutely retire what no longer pays. When facing a serious strategic choice, map it out into 3 stark columns. 1, what I know. 2, what I assume. 3, what must not break. Look, this isn't just a clever spreadsheet trick. It is a profound moral act. Setting these terms stops your nervous system from pretending. It forces you to define the exact loss you can carry and the exact lesson you need, allowing you to choose the smallest, most real move that can actively teach you.
We've got to move from a desperate, childlike need for absolution to a disciplined, mature demand for feedback. The old paradigm craves absolution. It constantly asks, will I be innocent after this result? The new paradigm, the one of the refined mind, demands reality. It asks for feedback. What exactly will reality teach me next? Once the price is clear, action completely loses its poison. You can finally bear a named risk, knowing you have priced it correctly. We have to completely dismantle the altar we've built to certainty. Probability has got to become your daily practice. Certainty is just a seductive drug that keeps you paralyzed, while probability is a sharp, structural discipline that gets you moving. It's not about being softer or more accepting of failure. It's about being sharper, completely replacing fantasy with a vibrant, intensely engaged life. What bet can teach you without breaking you? Think about the deep spiritual hunger beneath your desperate craving for a perfect future. The deepest insight we take from this masterclass isn't just that life is random. It's that chance can actually fundamentally train the soul. Every real choice asks for a form of courage. Not loud, reckless courage, but a quiet, intensely sustained courage with a firmly defined boundary. So here is your challenge. Move clean. Take this entire architecture into one specific decision you are actively facing today. Do it where your body tells the absolute truth. The inbox you're persistently avoiding. The proposal you keep endlessly polishing. The difficult conversation you keep calling premature. Each of those holds a small, hidden altar to certainty. Tear one down today. Name the wager, name the downside, and make a clean move. I want to leave you with this final, devastating question. What choice have you delayed because you wanted absolution, not evidence? Let the full weight of that realization hang in the air.
Continue the internal transformation at upgowise.com. Choose with nerve.